joining. It's a great pleasure to be here today. I'm not sure how many of you have a driving license, but I kindly ask you to fasten your seatbelt because this is going to be a quick one. My name is Paulo Silva. I'm a security researcher and pen tester at Shark49. But I've started as a software developer. I did it for more than 15 years, what was plenty of time to do all sorts of mistakes. I'm also co-author of something that you may have heard about, like the OWASP API Security Top 10. But the topic here today is another one. With us, we have David.
Yeah, so my name is David Sopas. I'm a security researcher for a long time, more than 15 years. I especially like research and focusing also on high-level pen testing. I already spoke on events like RSA, DEF CON. This is my first time here in Vegas because the first time I spoke on DEF CON it was on safe mode, so I was at home, not that fun, but still I did the shots with my friends, so shot the knob. And besides, and props to Besides Lisbon with some guys over here. I did some API security methodology. I don't know if you guys know it, Mind API. It's part of my open source work, and that's it. Let's start. Before some of the work that the research that we are presenting, I would like to say that this is not, we will not teach you how to hack web applications or APIs. All the target manufacturers you presented have a bug bounty program, responsible disclosure program, or whatever. So everything was reported to the organizations. Some of them were like late to respond, but in the end we did it. We will focus this presentation with 9 brands. I hope that at least one of them it's your car manufacturer. But let's start with this one. I don't know if you know this brand, but we will not mention it. It's a vulnerable, outdated component. But before that, I would like to tell you a little bit about the API and the API world, which means you have a lot of API architectures. I'm talking about the most popular ones, like REST, GraphQL, RPC, you name it. All of them make sense to mention that most of the vulnerabilities that were present was focused on these architectures. OpenAPI is one of the most common ones. Usually it's like connected in a way to Swagger. I hope anyone knows Swagger. I believe everyone knows Swagger. Yeah, okay. So the problem is that it helps out developers and even pen testers and researchers because it documents everything and it will help you not to make any mistakes and leave the documentation open. But one of the things that, because usually individuals like shiny things and web interfaces, Swagger UI is one of them. It's the most popular one and usually is left publicly available. This is the example of Swagger Pet Store, but like every software, it also has vulnerabilities. So especially the vulnerability from 3.71, which is the cross-site scripting, which allows you to put specially crafted JSON file that you can control and put a cross-site scripting payload, and you can do a lot of stuff with that. This is the classic example of a Swagger UI, which is presented on the brand that I showed you. This is come to a reminder that if you use third-party software, please keep it updated because it can be a way that attackers can achieve to get into your organization. This brand, which is, I'm guessing nobody here has this brand in their garage. If so, kudos. it has a vulnerable outdated component. This time it's not Swagger, but we found that a subdomain on this company immediately caught our attention because we saw a form and we like, oh, okay, form. Let's try to approach this the security research way. We immediately went to the inspector because it's faster than trying to do some proxy stuff. We noticed that it was a WordPress because it has a lot of tips like WP content, WP plugins. You can use, for example, for enumeration tools like WP scan, but in this case, we immediately saw that the plugin that we wanted, and we could see if any vulnerability could be in place. And it was. This subdomain from this manufacturer used W3 total cache. It was a vulnerable version, and this was very cool for us to test, especially for this manufacturer that I don't know if they could like offers a good reward like a car. This is the CVE from the plugin. It's very cool. So it's vulnerable to you could read arbitrary files from the subdomain, and the main goal here, okay, to create the POC and to respect the responsible disclosure program, let's like grab WP config and drop the database details and tell them, hey, this is your database. Okay, so at least the credentials, and that's what we did. So this is the exploit. The first thing that we wanted to know and to play around with the file path was to see what was the operating system running. So we do the curl, put the full URL, the plugin place, the vulnerable parameter which was the subscriber URL. So we put etc issue just to see if it's running Linux, and it was. The response is below. So it's Ubuntu, not the latest version, but it doesn't matter. But they give us, with this operating system, gave us clues to understand the path and the configuration files for other stuff. So moving forward, so now we noticed that it's running virtual hosts. So we did the Apache conf. It's like going through to see how we can get the full path, internal path for the WordPress installation and get the WP config. Sites enabled. We needed to know the domain itself, so we tried it, and in the end, after like experience, because sites enabled usually it's the subdomain, we tried that on the subscriber URL, and we got the document root, which was this one. And with that, we just tried WP config, and we got the database from this high-level manufacturer that, in the end, decided to tell us, good work, and it fixed it. Another brand, this is my favorite because it's a brand that I'm very close to, and we found out some cool stuff like Bola, Reflected, cross-site scripting, and again, components that are vulnerable. But it's very hard sometimes to get VINs from cars, as you can see. Usually it's placed on the windshield, but you can also try other things like going to Google and search for VINs. And we did that. Not only that, we decided, okay, let's see if we can create on this manufacturer account dashboard, add these cars without any confirmation. So we create a persona, which is G1, and we added a bunch of cars, like you can see on the picture. Sorry, it's in Portuguese. We are from Portugal, so it's automatic translated, but it works in every language. So we added these cars. On other brands, and I can tell you that like on the 9 manufacturers that we tried, at least 3, you need to confirm on the infotainment inside the car to have the car added to your dashboard account on the car website. In this case, like you can add it and get information from. This is the information you added without any interaction from the user inside the car. So that's a big issue. some brands tells you that no, it's normal, but you can see after a while that it's not. So on this information that we get on the UI dashboard, you know that you have an outdated car, for example. You can see the versions from the infotainment system. You can see issues related to guarantees. If you paid for years to have more guarantee on your vehicle. Also, more information that what you need to do when you go to an inspection car. But one thing that we noticed is that we could get more information on the API that was not present on the UI, and this is cool. Okay, so we try that. And by the way, with this endpoint, which is already fixed, so disclaimer, you don't need even to be authenticated. This is like public information. On the API, we can get odometer, fuel, battery status if it's electric, oil life, tire pressure for each wheel, for each tire, and etc. You can see the screenshot on the API. This information is not present on the UI, by the way. So we get that. It will be cool, like to get, for example, on this manufacturer for a friend, and you can go check out his VIN and bet with him. Okay, if I know the exactly number of kilometers that your car has, you buy me a beer. So this is win-win. So other information, I think that's another endpoint that we found using our intersection, only using a proxy, was like type of vehicle, which is in the car, not that relevant. So model, one thing, and I put the smileys on, Wi-Fi hotspot, very cool. I love cars with Wi-Fi hotspot. Also, if it's connected to the internet, even better. And as you can see, we can do a lot of things, especially with the Wi-Fi hotspot. We can wiggle. So I got the hotspot from the broadcast MAC address. I grabbed it and go to wiggle, and then we get location from the vehicles. And that's very cool because I'm talking about millions of these manufacturers, but it works also for other brands. So this is like crazy. Firmware update is something that we still like a work in progress because on this specific request, we get information from firmware, but not only that, we can download it, unpack it, and what we did is just, I mounted on my operating system, I noticed what was the operating system running on the infotainment, it was Armand's, but I didn't check for more information so far. I was focused on the API stuff, so I moved forward. Recalls. This is something that the manufacturer was like, tell me that this was an acceptable risk. Again, I don't understand why, but I will explain that later. The recalls, it's something that the information that it comes is very juicy, because especially you know if the car was like, had problems with something, and get information about that. But not only that, we noticed that one of the fields returning on the response of this API request was the description part. And it was maybe used by an operator, a mechanical part, I don't know. I don't know who used this field, because most of the PYY information that we got was added to this field. So I found out something like, please return the car to the home, to the owner at address with his phone and everything. So this is like public information according to this manufacturer, but it's, you can see name, location of the owner of the car and everything. I communicated that to the manufacturer. He told me it's normal, so maybe. It's kind of weird to receive sometimes these kind of responses, but okay, so what? With all this information together, we can do a lot of stuff. Okay, wiggle data, we can track devices to pinpoint locations. We can place, for example, some antennas on specific spots and try to track vehicles. Analyzing odometer, for example, you can create, you can know routines from the habits from the victim, for example. Insights from everything, how much fuel, and you can calculate when the person needs to go refuel or something like that. A lot of stuff. Recall information gives you PYI information, so it's crazy, but yeah. And by the way, yeah, outdated component again, but not only one. If it's like loading, it takes a while because it's doesn't work. Okay. This is all for the same manufacturer. Halfway. And still done. That's it. They control the documentation and the third-party software very well. So I think that's it. Passing to Paulo.
Okay, from now on it's with me, I believe. The point here, this is not a full assessment on car manufacturers. We are not trying to assess car safety. This was like a free time to assess how car manufacturers handle their digital asset security. So we were looking for few bugs that we could chain together and prove them the impact. So this is why you're going to see a lot cross-site scripting that we can chain with something else and prove them the impact and get the system patched. So another manufacturer. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the return URI query string parameter, but when I see one, I get excited. Probably I'm going to get an open redirect. But then I have an additional feeling, maybe I can get the cross-site scripting, which is even better, and all we have to do is change the URI scheme and change from HTTP or HTTPS to JavaScript, and we get a cross-site scripting easily. And chances are that we can access cookies or local storage using our cross-site scripting, and probably the auth token is in there, and we can use it to exfiltrate the token. So this is how we prove the impact here. It's a quick demo. So you can use it on a phishing, email, with the malicious payload, and as soon as the victim logins, we get the auth token. So this way, it's not only a cross-site scripting that probably no one are willing to fix. There's the impact here to exfiltrate PII, and this is a bigger deal for the manufacturer. But usually you also find, let's call it less interesting stuff, like clickjacking or UI redressing. If you're familiar with it or not, what we have on the screen are the same, but there's some red fields, and those fields we are loading the login form on our own domain, attacker.com, and the red ones are fields that we put on top of the legit login form. So this is why redressing is how the attack works. It's not that fancy, and probably no one is going to fix a UI redressing as long as you can prove the impact it may have. And chances are, this is just an hypothesis, that the same company or organization has a subdomain pointing to an AWS CloudFront, and when you request some resources from it, you realize it comes from S3. Not sure whether you're familiar with S3. It's a cloud storage. You can put there, they are called buckets. You can put there whatever you want. One of the features is hosting static websites. But Amazon and S3 permissions are not that easy, and quite often we choose to go with the star. We allow everything to everyone. And S3 has a public API, REST API. You can read the docs online, and chances are that we can write to the bucket. I'm not saying that was the case, but chances are you can write to the bucket and upload whatever you want. And if you have a UI redressing issue, maybe you can even deploy the login form, deploy the malicious login form on their own subdomain.
And this is how it would potentially look like to exfiltrate credentials. So you can upload whatever you want to a public S3 or at least internet-facing S3 bucket. Then you get your UI redressing page deployed on the subdomain. The victims fill the form, and you get the credentials on your own server. This is exactly what we have in this demo. So with the impact proof, they fixed it. Otherwise, probably they would look like a UI redressing, no one cares. So let's move on to another manufacturer. And you may be asking yourselves, why didn't you fuzz to find new endpoints? We did it. And we found something called SiteMinder. We were not aware what SiteMinder was, and we asked ChatGPT or AI. You may be missing the AI buzzword. And ChatGPT told us it's a widely used access management and authentication solution developed by CA Technologies. Okay, so it's a third-party software, but you have a domain pointing to it. So we did what this company was supposed to do. We checked for CVEs. One of them was a cross-site scripting on SiteMinder. So you may know where this is going to end up. Just crafting a simple payload. It's an image on the username parameter. Running some code, some JavaScript code, and you get the cross-site scripting. But instead of a single SiteMinder, they had tons of them, so tons of chances to exploit cross-site scripting on this car manufacturer. So moving on to another manufacturer. This is another time when I get a 404 not found, my heart starts beating faster, because this is again a AWS S3 bucket, and when you get the 404 means that someone deleted the bucket, and buckets, the name should be unique across all AWS regions. So if the bucket was deleted, but there's still a subdomain pointing to it, you can create the bucket, and you're gonna get control over the content that's served on this subdomain. So this is a subdomain takeover technically, but we need to figure out in which region the bucket should be created, where it was created before. But this is not magic. You can use several tools to do it. Checking the DNS, you get the region. It's Europe Central. You just create the bucket, upload the content, and from that moment on, you're serving content, whatever you want, on the organization subdomain. This is, to be honest, this is quite common on S3. Keep watching your subdomains, monitor whatever subdomains you have, buckets, your assets. But before moving to the next manufacturer, still cross-site scripting on Swagger UI. So you're going to find them deployed everywhere, and no one cares about known vulnerabilities on this software. So let's move on to another manufacturer. We were looking to Porsche. It's not a secret here. We found out this website called Porsche Experience. We looked under the hood to understand how it worked. It's a single-page application backed by a GraphQL API. So this time is not REST, but we noticed something quite strange. The auth token was included twice on the GraphQL request, both on the cookies and in the authorization header. It depends how familiar you are with HTTP, but adding the auth token on the request header is a game changer in terms of cross-site scripting. If the API picks the auth token from the cookie, cookies are managed by the web browser and they are automatically added to the request. So we came up with the idea, maybe we can exploit a cross-site request forgery. Let's see if that happens or not. To do that, the API should get the auth token from the cookie instead of the authorization header, and that was what was happening with the GraphQL API. Then we need the API to be willing to fulfill requests coming from or started from another origin, which the API is also willing to do. So we still have some cross-origin request sharing issue here, misconfiguration on the API. But then browsers include several security features, namely to protect your cookies. And the browsers, they were not willing to include the cookie on requests started from external origins. So it was like, okay, there's no way here, it's a dead end. But in fact, cross-site scripting would make this a great issue. So instead of one, we found 3 cross-site scriptings in different websites, and we decided to go with the campaigns.porsche.com for a phishing email. It sounds kind of catchy if you can offer something on a campaigns.porsche.com. So this is the vulnerable URL, the parameter. You should keep the integer for some reason, but you can then append the HTML. So this is the loader we're gonna add to the URL that we're gonna send to victims to load a JavaScript file from a remote server. Then we have to do some encoding because it's not that easy to manage spaces and special characters on the URL. And this is what's fetched from our remote server. So we're gonna do a GraphQL query, fetch victims PII, and exfiltrate it to the remote server. Then we just need to trick victims to click the URL, so offer them something like a Porsche experience, why not? And this is how it goes. So we are waiting victims' data, so let's email them, we get the click. So as you can see, I read the emails, then I click them, the links, and from that moment on, we get the PII on our remote server. Again, the point here is not, none of the issues here are that fancy. The point is chaining them together and prove the impact. And this way we get all of them fixed. Yes, and I know you. So we talked about subdomain takeover. So this is another subdomain takeover on a different manufacturer, but here the issue is a bit different. In this case, and sometimes if you want to integrate with some third party, they're going to say point subdomain to our own domain or subdomain. They create a custom subdomain so that you can point something to them. But then at some point the company gave up on the product, but your DNS record is still pointing to their own. And if it was a bucket and they just deleted their bucket, we can create the bucket. That was the case here. There was a DNS record pointing to another company, and the company gave up on the bucket, and we created the bucket, and we got our content delivered through their bucket. So again, Swagger UI, so if there's a big takeaway today, go home and check whether your company has Swagger UI deployed or any other third-party piece of software, and check whether there are known vulnerabilities and patch the systems. So time for another one. Nothing fancy again, just a cross-site scripting on Swagger UI. So we've talked about misconfigured AWS S3 buckets. So here's another use case, the same issue, public writable S3 bucket. So the same thing, you get your own code running on one of their subdomains, and then you can access APIs and other stuff because you're running on their one subdomain. So most of the policies can be bypassed or will be bypassed this way. So we just got our content. Again, we use a phishing email. I believe we asked ChatGPT to write it, not exactly give me a phishing email because otherwise we won't get it. But as it happened before, with this simple trick, we get the auth token that we can then use. In this case, I believe we got it was PII from the API. But that was not the only one issue with this manufacturer. As David said, you have a vehicle identification number, you can get them from your windshield, so let's call it public because anyone can get it from your car park, from the car park. Or if you're lazy enough, as we are, you go to Google, you search, and you get 1,890,000 vehicle identification numbers. and then you can add them to you can use the API to fetch PII, drivers PII, owners PII. There was something interesting here. We were not able to use this API endpoint before adding them, okay, just a few seconds. Before adding one car, we need to be a owner, but we can be a owner of anyone's car. Just pick the VIN, add to your account, you become a owner, and from that moment on, you can do thousands of requests to just scrape the data from the API. Maybe you're lucky and you're gonna get, again, a cross-site scripting from some redirect URI, and you can do the same magic we did before. Okay, I'm not sure we're gonna have time for all of them, but those are quick. Let's see. If you have SiteMinder, go home and patch it. We have 91 instances of SiteMinder in the same company, so go home and fix it.
I'm very fast. Just to tell you, you have the table with all the information. Organizations subscribe to vulnerability databases, of course. Create a safe harbor for us, hackers, so that's very cool. Reply to our emails. It's for everyone's security. AI won't make your assets safe, but only safer. That's a QR code if you want a promo on API security training. So that's it. Thank you.